The Tiniest Mullet. In a small town in Mississippi lived Tiny Mullet. He was living a double life, that's what people say. At night he would party until he'd collapse. By day he made dreams come true selling Mississippi mud flaps. His business was booming, he was never off track, because he had a head for keeping business up front and the party in the back. But the townspeople mocked him for one superficial physical feature. They found him a grotesque, horribly disfigured creature. How to put into words it was difficult to define, this horrific growth from the tip of his spine. If he got near you, you'd have to pull away. The townsfolk screamed, "Here comes Tiny Mullet!" They all poked and prodded. Look at his mullet! A mullet so small. From plenty of angles it wasn't a mullet at all. They'd circle and taunt and swoop and swarm. That puny neck-warmer couldn't keep a pygmy neck warm. But the townies did love the tiny mud flap, and when they'd begin to lean his way, his evil stepbrother would have something to say. He knew just the thing to tip that scale. "You call that a mullet? It's at most a rat tail." Then he'd throw in to add to the rub, "Did I say a rat tail? What I meant was rat nub." Tiny tried all his life to sprout more hair from his head, to pay tribute to the South where he was born and bred. This is one thing he couldn't blame on his stepbrother. Maybe it was his half-sister, who was also his half-mother. "Sweet Michael Bolton!" Tiny finally exclaims. It seems that his genes are ultimately to blame. His genes, then back reality came. Tiny realized in corduroys his hair still looked the same. Now his true problems were about to skyrocket. "My mud flaps are selling like hotcakes. Why's there no money in my pockets?" Perhaps the answer lies with his evil stepbrother. Did I mention he was evil? Whom Tiny rescued from a life of roadkill retrieval? Tiny made him a partner and got him out of his despair, no rut. He bought him a Chevy and gave him his first Camaro cut. The stepbrother then took advantage, some say quite a bit. But Tiny thought what could possibly be wrong with a 10-90 split. Then came the mismanagement and poor marketing ploys. The stepbrother spent most of the profits on the things he enjoys. You know, monster truck rallies and buckshot, and of course the top products for his full-flowing mullet. The reason top critics have always rated him #1 with a mullet. He'd lather up with the finest shampoos to not cause one single tear. Then he'd rinse and repeat, sometimes twice a year. So the sales floor was bare, but the stockroom had stacks. Oddly, they were short in the front, but long in the back. Will Tiny just sit and sulk and accept his defeat? Will he say, "Why us? I must confront my stepbrother," I say, before the eyes of Billy Ray Cyrus. Or at least a poster of him in my room. It was a gift. How could he stand up to a man with a mullet so fluffy? Tiny's been told in the past he barely passes for scruffy. "Oh, dear MacGyver, I turn to you for support. You loved hockey hair, and there you were such a sport. I drew strength from the picture in my wallet I took of your Canadian passport. Your mullet was a humble but beloved little flip, solving mysteries for the man and always so hip. I worshipped you till I found out your ape drape was fashioned with an old wad of gum and obligatory paper clip. Why?" Where to draw courage? Obviously there wasn't much to back him up. Lord knows there was little help from above. Maybe if Tiny could just hear from his one and only love. One and only? Only one, Tiny? No, of course not. It's not how it looks. Believe me, there were definitely plenty of women in the past, generally speaking. I haven't read about a few of them in the history books. But the one. They've known each other since they were children, as the story's been told. She's been the apple of his eye since they were 7 years old. Tiny first met her at a bar called the Trailer Park Groove, and it comes as no surprise she's his third cousin twice removed. I mean, she is his first cousin. Hey, there's nothing to prove. She just happens to be Tiny's third cousin that had to be removed twice forcibly from the property of the Trailer Park Groove. There's nothing wrong with being kissing cousins when all's said and done, but these two kept kissing cousins till they found the right one. Tiny couldn't possibly face his stepbrother until he got her call. His phone rings and he hears a voice as sweet as a Kentucky waterfall. The lovers talked for what seems like minutes, and he had her support. She said it really didn't matter that his mullet's so short. He told her he needed her by her side, and he poured out his soul. She asked, "Can you make it in 4 months when I'm up for parole?" But Tiny had to act now and said, "I can't wait to see you. I have to cut this short." Then he had an idea. He contacted his stepbrother, told him he wanted his company back in this thing with teasing his tiny mullet over. The stepbrother thought for a second. Of course he had to mull it over. Then he said, "All right, let's do it." Then he started demanding, both the business and the girl goes to the last mullet standing. The stepbrother showed up with pipes and chains. Tiny only had a razor and asked, "Did you expect it?" His stepbrother laughingly said, "How bad could you cut me? Your razor's electric." So the two square off, and the dance starts. It's not strange to see a square dance round these parts. The stepbrother swung and he missed and said, "Tiny, why don't you just quit?" He said he didn't know the meaning of the word, but promised he'd look it up in a bit. Plus, "I'm quick and I'm nimble, and needless to say, this Tiny Mullet's a hard target to hit." Another swing, another miss. Hey, Tiny don't play. He knew his stepbrother couldn't swim, so he kept him at bay. It was just about time to take this dumb fucker out. Tiny let him swing a few more times till he was plumb tuckered out. Tiny launched his attack. His stepbrother couldn't stave it all off. Tiny grabbed him by his hair and sparked his razor to pull an Agassiz and shave it all off. But Tiny couldn't do it. He thought, what's the use? Did he forget about all the years of torment and abuse? No, Tiny couldn't do it because the mullet came loose. Then a little tug, so easily torn off. It looks like his stepbrother had worn a rug, but the glue had worn off. The stepbrother ran off in shame. Tiny said, "We finally have peace, and if we can't actually get along, we have this hair piece at least." Tiny screamed, "In the land of the bald, the skullet is king!" And now by his family he had to do the right thing. As noble as an eagle, and some other fine traits, he wanted to make this thing with his cousin legal, in at least several states. He and his true love were to be wed, and nothing could stop that. Tiny put on his best medicated tux and Tennessee top hat. They exchanged vows and fluids in a ceremony so exquisite. Hey, it really was quite lovely for a conjugal visit. Love is what it's about, and they'll live happily after one day. But until she gets out, they'll have to settle for every other Sunday. The end.